Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. This is not exactly a monster ecology video or exactly an exploration video. Really, it's more of a flavour video. Some thoughts and reflections on the world of Toril, and I'm just going to ramble about things that have been on my mind lately. As I make these videos, I read a lot of Dungeons & Dragons texts from older sources, and I see a lot more information just in passing than I could ever include in videos that I make. Plus, people have asked me about making a podcast, and well, this is what a podcast from me would be like, really. So you tell me at the end of this if it's really something you want to hear more of on the channel. If not, don't be afraid to give me a thumbs down if you're not into it. That's what the like and dislike buttons are there for anyway. The first subject I wanted to talk about is magic items, ancient ruins, ancient texts, and just what the common language is in the Dungeons & Dragons, particularly the continent of Faerun. In my video on gnomes, I mentioned that the primary language of technical and scholarly written works is Nim, a language of the gnomish people. And personally, I always think of the general Fey accent as being kind of a Gaelic or Old English, as that's the primary location where all the folklore stems from in our world. So scholars, sages, scribes, engineers, masons, blacksmiths, cartographers probably know at least how to read Nim, and a lot of the words in the common language would be Nim. So let's look at some gnomish words for a second. Kosum Kaman Denuksud means the calm before the storm, and Magna Camara means by the stones. But when you compare the very long history of the demi-human races, the elves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, they have a remarkably homogeneous group of languages, and the common explanation for this is they all have patron gods who ensure that their people never get so far into any dialect that they no longer are speaking the same language as any other member of their race. And the same could be said for the giants, who do have some pretty heavy dialects. They all speak Jotun, or Jotun, and the ogres speak Yogish, which is a much simpler version, kind of like a pidgin language. The orcs speak Daraktan, kobolds speak Yip-Yak, centaurs speak Kentor. Even the goblins, they all speak Gukliak. And this is very much not the case for humans, who have, let's see, we've got Eluski, which sounds like Old Norse or Norwegian, and Wayland or Druidic, which sounds like Welsh. We have Ulau, which is the root language of the Netherese, the High and Low Ulutum. We've got Chard and Durturig, which sound like Baltic, Prussian, Lithuanian sort of thing. There's Thoras, the root language of the various regional Thoras dialects, which include Waterdavian and Cormanthan and so on, and Turmic, and Aglarontan. And they all sound Latin or Italian and French. There's also Chisentic, which sounds Greek. We have a few local dialects plus Akaliak, which includes Western Lizard Creole. We have Ruotheran, the Slavic-sounding language with a few dialects, and that's not even counting the Muscari languages, or the Rurik languages, or the Chiltern Tabaxi. I could honestly talk about the languages of the Forgotten Realms for a couple of hours, I swear to you. So, in the mix of all these dialects, what's common? Well, the answer for most adventurers in Faerun, at least, is that they're speaking Thorasta. The purest version of Thorasta is spoken mainly in the Western Heartlands, from the Way In to the north to Burgost in the south, and from Baldur's Gate to the west and to Hill's Edge in the east. In our world, the common language usually follows trade, and so it's gone from Latin to French to Dutch and Spanish to English, and we'll probably go to the way of Firefly and be a mix of Mandarin and American in the future, but mostly emojis and weird memes. But when your party is specifically speaking common or Thorasta to each other, it sounds like a mixture of Latin, French, and Italian. And it's not an overly complicated language, it's a trade language. So you may ask about how much is a bag of apples, or how far to the nearest haberdashery in the city, but it's poorly suited to expressing one's heartfelt feelings to a girlfriend, or discussing the anatomy and alchemical uses of a dead displacer beast. When a party of adventurers are speaking together, they will be talking in a mixture of common tongue Thorasta, Nim, the language of the gnomes and scholars, Dethic, the language of the dwarves, whose alphabet is common to many races, including the gnomes, but has its origins in primordials and the giants and the ancient empire of Astoria, and the 1,000 years that the dwarves were enslaved by them. They will be speaking the ancient elven language Espruar, with the tongue of the Telquesir, the moon or silver elves, who are the most common of their race. The halfling language, they will probably intersperse it with, the halflings, They speak Lurin, but they don't actually speak it outside of Lura. They mostly just speak whatever human language they're around. Where was I? Ancient Rams. They will probably intersperse it with profanity in Barakan or Gukliak, or have specific names for a trap in Yip Yak, because that's what the kobolds call it. But then, of course, they'll be delving into ancient ruins, and well, they've got a long period where the Netherese ruled the continent. There were thousands of years of dominance of the elves and the dwarves. There was a time when lizard folk were widespread, when Aarakocra ruled the land, or orcs and trolls actually had a semblance of an empire that spread out from the Silver Marches. Then there's a dark and deeper history with the empire of the serpent folk. The Mind Flayers, or the Aboleth, dominated the ancient world, and they've all got languages and things of their own. The Mind Flayers have got a very strange language. Now consider a property of most magical items that we kind of take for granted, but becomes the first thing someone mentions when their character is blasted or dipped in acid, and the DM says, well, we're going to lose some equipment from that one. Then the player resigns themselves to having some broken potions, maybe a ruined scroll, kiss goodbye to their bedroll and bag of 1,000 ball bearings. But when the DM says that the magic sword is in danger, they protest. But magic items are stronger. Haha, we've all done this. But now think about the much broader implications for your D&D world. In the Forgotten Realms, when an adventurer pulls an axe, a battle axe from a dragon's treasure pile, and it has a petrified bone haft and a blade made of enchanted jade with strange twisting writing on it, that axe may be 20,000 years old, dating back to the lost emperor of Yuan-Ti. Or imagine that your magic item trader would have a shop that looked more like a museum than a market. Now, as much as the idea of going into the world of Toril is actually terrifying, I mean, seriously, there are gibbering mouths and rock crabs, actual vampires, and much, much worse. But the amazing history of that place is mind-boggling. On Earth, we dream up fantastic theories about alien civilizations and wonder at any visitors from the stars if they'll arrive or have been here in the ancient past or secretly here in the present. But on the world of Dungeons and Dragons, aliens are real. They're a fact of life. They're not just exotic creatures from other worlds and different dimensions. They are sentient species that arose alongside each other, have fought ancient wars, have empires rise and fall, and for the most part, they're pretty familiar with each other. I come from a reasonably diverse and new country. We have people from lots of different cultures here, and generally speaking, there's a lot of tolerance for things that are different. What one would call a cosmopolitan attitude. And that would be 1,000-fold more extreme in a city like Waterdeep, and 100,000-fold on a planet hub like Sigil, the City of Doors. Plus, they're familiar with magic. A lot of people compare the D&D world to our medieval times on Earth, and technically speaking, the modern time that Faerun is in our most recent published sources, is about 1491 DR, as of 2015. If one were to go there and cross directly over from the Earth right now, it would be 1749 AD here in our present. So they're actually, the written setting of Toril is actually in our past, hundreds of years in our past. But Faerun is not like medieval Europe. If you took a flat screen TV and a portable power source over to Toril and set it up on a street corner in Waterdeep, you might get some curious looks. Some kids might stop and watch a movie and ask what realm the Avengers are from and what sort of race Thanos is, but they would not be freaked out by modern technology, and they would not assume that what they were watching on the screen was all fictional, because on Toril, who has time to go around making such elaborate stories when real life is just as interesting? A Torilian would not be overly impressed with a machine gun. They would immediately point out that bullets are extremely hard to come by and difficult to manufacture. When a wand of magic missiles will recharge itself most of the time, or if you know where you can go and get one sorted out, that's just a thing that's done. Plus, it's a fraction of the weight of a rifle or the loads of ammunition that you need. And a gnome or dwarf would be far more interested in the alloy and plastic it's made from than the actual gun itself. They don't have many guns because they don't need them. They have wizards and alchemists. They have swords that can fly through the air and attack things on their own. What do they need a buzzing radio-controlled drone for? Grenades? Yeah, well, meet my friend the Fireball. Combustion engine? How cute. How about a golem or a flying carpet? The bottom line is, the D&D world is not primitive compared to Earth. It just has an alternative technologies and a very, very unforgiving testing ground where it's literally a matter of life and death. As for magic items and the creation of wondrous items and such, I made a video a few years back, and that I particularly love the idea of an apprentice wizard or artificer who gets an item almost right. It's not malfunctional enough to be broken. They don't pass a test with anything higher than a C grade, But the expensive components went into the thing, and hey, they've got to earn their money back, or the apprentice needs to earn their tuition, so they sell it. It's not an immovable rod, it's a slightly moving rod. You hit the button and it will stay suspended in mid-air if you let it go, but if you try to hang your body weight off it, it will slowly slide down until you're sitting on the ground. Or you can put it on the front of a cart and let it slowly roll down a hillside road. And if you fall off the side of a building and have this thing strapped to a harness, you can effectively feather fall yourself to a safety at the bottom. So it's not as advertised perhaps, but it certainly is useful in other ways. And what would a malfunctional cut-price bag of holding be like? Perhaps it mysteriously begins filling up with vinegar. Does your feather token you purchase suspiciously cheap actually turn into an actual whole living chicken? Does that headband of intellect actually make you extremely sure of yourself? How do you know that the amulet of proof against detection and location actually works? Things to keep in mind when you are trading for magic items is that people who sell them know the real deal when they see it, and they know that most player characters who are not arcane experts would not know a potion of animal friendship from a cup of herbal tea. Particularly if they're buying something from a merchant they are less likely to see again anytime soon. If you buy magic items from an Aesir blacksmith in the city of Sigil, you had best be sure that you're trading for the real deal. Finally, if you're out in the backwoods of Faerun, even though the locals may seem pretty damn rustic, it's just because they have to make most of the things they use day to day with their own two hands. Now, think about that for a minute. Then look at a magic item or some ancient and exotic thing, some fine, elaborate bauble of ancient nobility, and just consider that to them, its base practical monetary value is all it is. But you give them a really fine magical hammer or axe, they will trade handsomely for it. My suggestion to you is that the tables and charts are a great baseline for quick and simple gameplay, but the moment you start to add in some local flavour and regional considerations, those charts and tables should probably start to acquire penciled-in notations or bits of paper wedged between the pages of the Dungeon Master's Guide detailing exactly what sort of magical items are available, or, how much things are worth in this particular location. The players will get a lot out of these little details. It's very immersive. They will start to really pay attention to the merchants. They'll start to figure out that they can earn a lot of money and influence just by how they sell their loot and who they sell it to. They will start to pay attention to things like fine paintings and sculptures, signet rings and tapestries. They'll figure out, noble families and things who might value such things. They will have those moments in the game where they're speaking in lizard folk, in a made-up lizard folk language that they've learned at your gaming table. And they will recall those words years later with a keen recollection of what was going on in the story when they learned a few words of lizard folk. For instance, my gaming group knows that the lizard folk word harkus means danger or forbidden. Alright. That's enough from me. If you like this sort of video, hit that button, let me know. Just a reminder, if you're not subscribed already, feel free to do so. And be sure to hit that notification bell as I upload from the other side of the world sometime in your future. For access to all the scripts and 1 week advance access to these videos, consider becoming a patron of the channel on Patreon for a minimum of just $1 a month. Join the community on our Discord server and come say hi. Also, if you want to pick up a new video game at a significant daily discount and help me out in the process, check out the daily deal on Chrono in the link below in the video description text. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.